an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Killing Eve, Season 2, Episode 8. You're Mine. In this episode, it turns out that we can wrap shit up with Aaron this episode. I didn't think that we were going to do that. And everybody is being set up by everybody else. And it's rough, man. I feel bad, but also fuck all of them. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Laura for commissioning this episode. So apparently there are some other bookings after this one. So there are going to be the first two of season 3. But just to let you guys know, because I had said last episode that this was the last one commissioned. But evidently that's not true, and there was just some error with getting the spreadsheet updated. So I believe there are going to be the first two of season 3. And I don't know if any of y'all have a suggestion on where I can find that to watch season 3. I might have to buy it on Prime or something. But anyway, so this is really a hell of a finale. Like, if they had just decided to end the show here, it wouldn't have been a terrible ending. To be honest, it sucks to have Eve die. And when I say it sucks to have Eve die, I mean in the sense that if it were a season finale and there's no follow-up, you would have to assume she was indeed dead here. But we know there's another season coming, and the show is named after her. So I'm going to assume Eve is not dead. Now, I may be wrong. Wouldn't it be wild if they did... What was that show in like the 80s where they replaced the woman the show was named after because she was like throwing her weight around and they didn't want to deal with her and they recast her, or I think they killed her off actually. But, you know, they might do something like that here. However, I doubt it. And now that I see where this season ends, I have some theories about where the next season might go. But I'm getting ahead of myself as per usual. So let's back up. And we will talk about the opening scene with Vilanelle sneaking around what's-his-face's stuff, Aaron's stuff. So she is prowling around, and I did find it very surprising that there was nobody to stop her. And she looks around in a way that suggests to me she's also surprised that nobody has stopped her. Later on, she says something to Aaron about, what, are you telling me you didn't want me to see it? So it's clear that here even, she is suspecting that this is a little bit of a setup and he already knows what's happening. And his terminal is open. And out of pure curiosity, as usual, I don't want to say that this is due in any way to the overall investigation. I think it's pretty clear that this is pure curiosity. She clicks on her own file and sees herself being watched as she is like opening her new, all of her clothing and whatnot on the first day. And I really enjoyed watching her, realizing that he was watching her this entire time. So then there's Matilda and the most recent file she clicks on for Matilda. Now, I don't remember if we know who Matilda is. I tried to stop and zero in on her face here, and I couldn't see her very closely and tell if I know who she is. She turns over and she's fairly young. I feel like I maybe am supposed to know who she is, but she's asleep. And all of a sudden the camera turns and we see him come in and he has a knife. And Matilda turns around and sits up, obviously really flipped out, not knowing why he's here. we see Eve really like watching and kind of spellbound, or not Eve, sorry, Vilanelle. And then the camera turns back around and Matilda's dead on the bed. And she kind of leans back in a moment of, well, shit. And apparently he just does this? All of these files? Like, I want to know if he goes through every single one. Are they all ending with him killing these girls? Did he pick Vilanelle to kill her? Was that the plan? Like, who is Matilda to him? Because she was also sleeping in a huge, very elaborate bed. There's nothing to say that she couldn't just own that bed. But I kind of wonder if she wasn't like... They say, though, that he's never had a girlfriend. So I feel like that kind of relationship and her never turning up again would probably turn up at some point. Unless maybe he goes after people who are sort of low profile on purpose. Maybe the fact that Billy hadn't got much of a social media shadow. But that's all assuming that he falls for who Billy is. And it seems like he knows who Vilanelle is. Like, that was part of the thing. Or maybe he just knew that she was a psycho. Maybe it wasn't that he knew exactly what position she occupied in the world. He could just sense that she was also, I don't know. So she comes to breakfast, and this is just, I love the zeroing in on what the breakfast is. There's these there's a very Hannibal-esque feel to this section of the show, with it being so elaborate. All of the china, the gold-rimmed goblets and everything. But there is, I think, like a Parma ham that's been sliced up, and a knife and like a pair of prongs sitting there for her to zero in on. And we wind up seeing that come to some real fruition later on. So then we go back to Eve and Hugo. And Hugo is still trying to do a little bit of the flirty thing. He's being very game. He says, finally, when it's clear she's just going to ignore him. She's just going to ignore him and get back to work, and maybe she'll fuck him again tonight if she feels like it. It's a real sort of like he's a sex toy thing happening. It's very contemptuous. He says, I'll leave you to your girlfriend, and he goes out in the hall with a cell phone. So Eve tunes in, and Vilanelle is having breakfast, asking Aaron what he's doing. He says, I'm looking through their knicker drawers. She says, can I see? He says, mm-hmm. And he turns the thing around. And it's a picture of her handler that she had for a short time who tried to strangle her. And she says, what a weird looking gentleman. And Eve immediately sits up and goes, oh shit. And she starts to run out the door in order to alert Hugo. And all of a sudden, there's a sound of a gunshot. I am not entirely sure what to think about what's happening here. Because Eve was going to be allowed to walk out of here if she was willing to continue to do what Carolyn said and operate like this. Evidently, that's like what we're led to believe. So the person who shows up, is that somebody who works for Aaron? Because he seemed to be genuinely surprised when Eve turns up in response to Vilanelle. He didn't seem to know that they were working together, and I don't think he was acting. So if it's not him, and it's not Carolyn and like basically Eve's own people, that only leaves the 12. And if it is the 12, what is their interest in this entire thing? Are they just trying to get at Vilanelle and that's it? Or did they also have some interest in this product that Aaron's trying to sell? Or I just wasn't sure who it was that turned up here. But yeah, she hears the gunshot. She hears the thud. She makes sure that the hotel room is locked. And she looks out the peephole and sees Hugo down in the middle of the hallway. Oh no, actually she doesn't, because the way that the room is like canted, she can't actually see down that way. That's right. But she hears somebody coming and hears them like bash up against the door. And just before they manage to get into the room, she dives underneath the bed. And this guy like wanders around trying to find her in a very half-hearted manner. And I was going to call some real bullshit on the fact that he didn't think to look under the bed, but he winds up getting a phone call. And it's the sort of thing where like he might have thought to do it if he was given the rest of the time to use at his leisure. But he gets distracted. So I'm willing to accept that he doesn't think of the what do you call it? Going under the bed right away. Now, Eve watches him walk away. Well, first she hears him pick up the phone. We don't hear what this dude says other than okay. Like there's no sound from the other end of the line that we're allowed to listen to. But he leaves, and he leaves the door wide open. And she basically gets out from under the bed and books it the fuck out of there, comes across Hugo, and she has him pressed down on his wound because he's not dead, shockingly, and tells him that she's going to tell them downstairs to call an ambulance. She doesn't even call the ambulance herself. She has a cell phone. I don't know what that's supposed to be about. Like, is it just the language thing? Because they're in Rome and she's worried that she won't be able to like get through, because she comes downstairs, she rings a bell a bunch of times. Nobody's there. And she starts to dial. That's right. She dials 911 and she doesn't know the number. That's right. I forgot, because I'm wondering if she dialed from her cell, would it automatically know what she's trying to do? Because cell phones are crazy like that, you know, and they'll just like translate shit, or they'll like alter it to fit whatever time zone you're in. So I wonder if she dialed 911 and her GPS detected she was in Rome, would it know what to do? So she's beginning to write down what happened. Emergency, man shot, 3rd floor, call ambulance. And just as she's doing that, there's this dude outside who comes in and asks her if she's seen his friend. And this dude is extremely shady looking. He's like 8 feet tall and has a shaved head and a leather jacket and the kind of stance that tells you this is somebody you don't want to fuck with. And he asks if she's seen her friend, if she's seen his friend. And she plays dumb, and then he asks her to dinner, which I found so hilarious. I don't know why they decided to do this, but I love the idea of just inserting yet another fucking annoying dude into a woman's day, especially when that woman is Eve and she's dealing with the shit she's dealing with right now. It's just, it really reminds me of like, there have been times where, you know, I'm in the middle of doing something that's actually fairly important and I'll get a alert and I'll go and check it. And it's just some fucking random sliding into my DMs on Instagram going, "Hi, beautiful," heart emoji. And it's just like, oh my God, dude, I have shit to do. Can you fucking not right now? Seriously. And by not now, I mean ever. And that's just what this guy represents a little bit to me. Also, a face to recognize a little bit later when he turns up. His name is Danny. It's just so funny in the way that she has to play this. So she dresses up as a maid in order to sneak her way into the ridiculous hotel where Vilanelle is with Aaron. And she goes in there with fucking knife drawn, ready to just like do battle. And it becomes very clear that Vilanelle is absolutely fine. And I thought Vilanelle had said, gentlemen, because she assumed that he was looking at her old handler as a means of letting her know who she was. And she wanted to let Eve know that the jig is up. And maybe that is what she meant to do. And she didn't realize that Eve would see it as an SOS call the way that she did. But I remain shocked that the safe word, in quotes, that they picked out, all that it seems to actually signify is that we are going to let Eve drop everything and run in there with a literal, like, knife from a kitchen table. Or it's a letter opener, as it turns out. The safe word doesn't mean that people who can handle this type of shit are going to be mobilized for this specialized mission. It just means we're sending Eve, which I'm like, that seems not like what we want. You know, that's just not really helpful. And I guess that's part of what should be sending off warning bells for her. So this is when Vilanelle breaks character and just does her Russian accent. And I loved Aaron's reaction. He says, Russian? Now that is a surprise. Good accent. Very precise. And I love that because he's so not used to being surprised by anybody that the fact that she managed this, he just loves it. And then, and you know each other. I thought I smelled a rat, but I wasn't expecting that. So this entire thing is all a surprise. And you can see there's a bit of him that's impressed and enjoys the fact that he had no idea, you know? So at this point, Eve begins to realize that Vilanelle is just kind of fucking with her. And is like, I can't believe this. I came all the way over here. And this is when Vilanelle just drops the news. Aaron makes movies. And she turns and looks at him and says, I mean, they're not great. The murders are okay, but I want more story, you know? And he says, you saw them? And she says, oh, you didn't want me to see them? And he does seem sort of like he swallows hard enough that I'm surprised that it seemed to me he really left that open for her, I thought. So I don't know if he's behaving this way because of Eve only or what. But he tells Vilanelle, come work for me. And he says, what? She says, help me make your movies? And he says, yes. You'll get bored with her. You'll never get bored here. I'll make sure of it. Neither of us will ever be bored again. And obviously, this is speaking to exactly the thing that she was complaining about. So Eve starts to get she's genuinely nervous here, I think, for a moment. And Vilanelle has to say she's thinking about it. And she looks at him and says, there's nobody else. I'll give you everything. And she says, everything? And he says, you can have all of it. And honestly, this would work out really well for her if Eve weren't a factor. The two of them would be an absolute terror. Like, I don't even want to imagine the kind of things that Vilanelle would get up to if she had access to the sort of information that he has access to, because she was already teamed up with a group that had serious access. So, like, you know, with that, oh God, so anyway, there's something childlike about the excitement when she repeats everything. And he says, start now. And he looks down at the knife and he looks over at Eve and she says, you want me to kill Eve? And he nods. And she says, do you want to watch? And you can just see this man's dick getting hard. You can't. But, like, you can. And I think that this is the most reaction we have gotten from him in this entire show. The way that he looks at Vilanelle when she asks, do you want to watch? And the, like, deep breath that he takes. It's just, you know, and he leans back as she is walking over to Eve, so it seems, and she comes up behind him and cuts his throat and then drags him over to the mirror and holds him up in front of it. And y'all, he smiles as he topples over. He smiles. This is it, baby, apparently. He's just like, yeah, all right, pretty good, as he dies. You know what? I don't even know. Like, that seems sort of unfair that he did all the things that he has done and he gets to enjoy his own death too. That doesn't feel fair. This is when you want to believe in places like hell, you know? So Vilanelle drops him to the ground and then just says, what a dick. And Eve is standing there completely reeling. You weren't supposed to kill him. You said the safe word. What the fuck? They want her out into the street and she is pretending that Eve is serving as her, like, assistant for the day. And Eve is just in this state of, like, she's so frustrated and angry. And she doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know what either of them are going to do. Like, how MI6 is going to respond to this. And Eve is trying to talk about just bailing. And, or not Eve, Villanelle's talking about just bailing. And Eve is like, dude, now that you killed him, all that we have is the fucking information that we got on those recordings. That's it. So I have to go back to the hotel and get them. And Vilanelle says that she will go and get a car and lets Eve go off on her own. So, as she's searching for a car, Eve goes back to the hotel room and absolutely everything is cleaned up. And I mean really cleaned up. There is no indication anything happened here at all of any kind. The blood on the wall, the blood on the carpet, it's like everything is gone. And she goes into her room and the room has been completely cleared out. All the data, everything seems to be gone until somebody knocks on the door and it's Carolyn. And Carolyn tells her that the crew is the ones who cleaned up all of the, so they have all of the equipment and all of the files. And when she talks to Eve about what happened, the whole thing is supposed to have been, we're going after the buyers of Aaron Peel's weapon. But now that Aaron Peel is dead, Carolyn doesn't seem to be too fussed about that. She says, unfortunately, Aaron Peel isn't the first megalomaniac to think about weaponizing and selling data. But now, thanks to you and Vilanelle, he can't. And Eve suddenly realizes that she was being played the whole time. You sent us here to kill him. On the contrary, I told you both repeatedly and strenuously not to kill him. But it's hardly our fault if an assassin for the 12 murdered Aaron Peel. I think people will be rather relieved. Vilanelle wasn't working for the 12, wasn't she? Who's really to know who she was working for? I do. She was working for us. I understand. This is uncomfortable. This is not uncomfortable. This is a setup. Now look. Here's the thing. Carolyn just predicted how y'all were going to behave. It wasn't even a setup in the way that Eve is making it sound. She's making it sound as if you lured us in here with a dead body, shoved a murder weapon in our hand, and then fucking ran. And now you're trying to point at us like we killed him. No, no, no. She sent you to do something, and she just lied to you about what it was you were meant to do, knowing that you would do the thing anyway, because that's just who you are, and that's just who Vilanelle is. And that's just how this shit works out every time, because she has figured out who you are. So now it all makes sense. The evaluation that caused this dude to say that Eve shouldn't go on this mission because she's mentally unsound right now was the last thing that Carolyn needed to tick off on her to-do list. Make sure Vilanelle is accompanied by a similarly disturbed person to ensure that shit goes off the rails, basically. I am dying to know what happened to Hugo. Like, I don't feel like Hugo even comes up. Does he? He might, but I might have missed it. But, like, Hugo could have died. He may very well be dead and just a side effect of this whole mission. And Eve is so angry for being set up that she refuses to continue to work with Carolyn. But I have to say, Carolyn is just extremely good at her job. And I think Eve is just mad that Carolyn knew her better than she knew herself and was completely aware of what the fuck was going to happen here. I wonder how much Eve's own instability played into this whole plan working out, because I am going to assume Vilanelle isn't going to kill Aaron unless Eve is there to see it, or unless Eve is the one being threatened, at least. So Eve had to be there in order to, I guess, be a, what's the word I want? A motivator? But it's unclear. It just seems like they sort of threw the two of them into this mix, knowing eventually murder would come out of it. And that's, like, statistically the most likely thing to be true. I wonder if there is anything about the buyers as well. Do we know anything about them? Like, you know, Vilanelle was sitting at the table with the one guy so she can recognize him. She could ID him. But is that something that they're even at all interested in? Was it purely Aaron Peel? Or was it like, well, we want Aaron Peel dead. If we can get the buyers too, that's not terrible. I don't feel like there's much to be done about the buyers, probably. But yeah, Eve's like, Carolyn says, you did exactly what you wanted. This was all of your idea. It's just my job to get the best out of people. And Vilanelle did what she does best, and so did you. You were the person who made this whole operation possible. What Peel was selling would have been catastrophic, not just for MI6. And it was never going to be bloodless. You'll get over it. And I think that's the line that really does it for Eve. Her saying, you'll get over it. This assumption that eventually you're not going to feel as outraged about this as you do right now, which is very dismissive. And honestly, true. We know Eve, and I do believe that she would get over it. Part of the thing later that Vilanelle sort of sets up is to ensure that Eve doesn't get over it, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So she says no. Carolyn says she wouldn't do the same for you, and Eve looks at her and says, you don't know that. So she finishes with, you can't be on our side and hers. You've got a noose around your neck, and I'm offering to take it off you. And Eve says, I'm not going anywhere with you. And she says, good luck, Eve. And Eve tells her, I'm going to tell Kenny everything you did. And she just says he already knows. He's part of the cleanup operation. Which, yeah, Eve, you got given advice by him not to do this. If you didn't think he knew exactly what the fuck was happening here, I don't know what to tell you, kid. But it was pretty obvious that he was, like, aware, you know? She uses this like it's a real ace in the hole, and I was just like, girl, what did you think was going on? So then we have a similar scene in a lot of ways between Vilanelle and Constantine. And I love that she's wandering around just trying car doors to see which cars are unlocked. I guess she's going to just hotwire one. I assume that is a skill that she has. We probably have seen it. But Constantine beeps it open for her. Apparently it's his. And stands there waiting for her to notice him. And she comes up and asks, what are you doing here? And he says, saving your life. So he says, cash and gun hidden in the dashboard, and starts to give her the keys. And she says, great, I'll go get Eve. And he says, you can't go back there. It's not safe. And tries to tell her, it's finished. Get in the car and go. And when he says, I'm risking a lot to save your ass from them and from Raymond, she says, Raymond didn't see me. He doesn't know I'm here. And he starts laughing and says, oh, no, he does know. And she's like, well, if he knows, then why hasn't he killed me already? And he says, because someone asked him not to until after you killed Peel. And she's like, what do you mean they told me not to kill him? And as she says it, she suddenly realizes that she has also been played, that they knew exactly what she was going to do. And Vilanelle is not used to being played. She's being used to being told who her target is. She takes care of her target. She gets the reward she was promised. Being told not to kill somebody only in the hope that she will eventually actually do it is the opposite. And I'm sure it's rather insulting to her to have been on the receiving end of this sort of treatment. Like, because this again is a contempt for what you say you're going to do, because someone is looking past your words towards the actual pattern that they have learned about who you are. And nobody likes to feel that people see them more clearly than they see themselves. Nobody wants to feel, it's just, you know, we want to feel like we're in control of our own image and of who we are and what we do. And to be told by somebody, oh, you said you weren't going to do that, but I absolutely, not only did I know you were, but the entire mission depended on you not doing what you said. And everybody was simply waiting for it because it was so inevitable that I literally employed people who were relying on the fact that you would not do what you said. That's really intense. And he says, it was not my idea. And she says, it never is. And looks really devastated all of a sudden. He says, I warned you. You should have listened. And he says, I thought we were friends. And he says, we are, but we are not family. And this is, you know, what it comes down to is that Carolyn is allowing him to be back with his family. That is the bargaining chip. And she doesn't want to come second to his family. It's obviously been a sticking point for her that he has family at all. She wants him to belong to her. And he has other people who he cares about more. Maybe he loves her more. When he said that to her, he might even have been telling the truth. But that doesn't matter. And he finally asks her, what is it about Eve? And she says, "We are the same." And he says, "Are you sure?" And she says, "Yeah." But he doesn't seem as certain as she does. He kind of just gives her a look before he walks away. And I wondered if she was going to do anything as he walked away. But she just tells him, "I will find you and your family." And he says, "I don't think so." In a way that is very confident. I would love to know exactly what they have set up for him. So she takes this car over to the hotel where Eve is at, and she also takes the gun and tucks it in the waistband of her pants. And she goes to the hotel despite knowing that she's going to be facing this dude. And he is standing there with a fucking fire axe over one shoulder, smiling at her with this fucking, like, boss in a video game evil leer, and seems really excited to get to kill her. So excited. And she just says, "You are the worst." And it cuts for a minute before coming back, and I just howled. Like, the idea of her saying "you are the worst" and then cutting to commercial break is so funny to me. So he tells her, if you pick the right room that Eve is in, you get to keep her. And thus begins the fight. He doesn't even fight with the axe. He tells her also, because she calls him a nobody. And he says, "Some might say I'm a real somebody." And he says it with a smile. And I'm like, there's something about that smile that makes me think that this dude is actually going to turn out to be super significant. I don't know if that's like just him, bloviating or what. But yeah, this whole fight is like really brutal because it's pretty rare that we see male v female fights with characters who have names. It's often like it'll be a female main character fighting a bunch of nameless men, or a man fighting a bunch of nameless people and there are some women mixed in. But this kind of like, tete-a-tete with specific characters that we have gotten to know, and especially one of them being so much older than the other, there's a real like power imbalance here that's super creepy to watch. The whole thing feels like just so uncomfortable and awkward. And Vilanelle eventually winds up in the position where he is strangling her, and really excited about it. He is enjoying the hell out of strangling her. And Eve sneaks up behind him with the battle axe. I say battle axe because it is. And we wind up finding out later that Vilanelle had a gun in the waistband of her pants the whole time. Now, we knew that she had put it there, but for some reason, I don't know why. I guess I just felt like, oh, it's unsportsmanlike to use a gun when they're doing hand-to-hand combat. Like, that was literally the best I was thinking in my mind. It didn't occur to me that she was just setting Eve up here. It should have. Everybody's setting everybody up this episode. That's the whole thing. So Vilanelle is low-key dying. Her face is turning a really weird color. And finally, Eve uses the axe, and it really, this dude is depending on the fact that she won't. But she uses it and gets it right between the shoulder blades, on his spine. And Vilanelle sort of collapses and then starts yelling at Eve about her aim. And it's just like, the shoulder? And Eve says, well, I didn't know. So she trips him and she says, pull it out, get him in the head. And Eve has to put her foot on the man's back to yank the axe out of his spine in order to get him in the head. And she does it a couple of times. Now, look, I knew that Vilanelle deeply wanted Eve to kill this guy. Don't get me wrong. I just didn't think about the whole thing being a setup. She depended on the fact that Raymond was going to try and kill her, and that Eve would hear it and come to her rescue. But this point, even not thinking about the setup, you know exactly what's happening, because she could kill this guy herself. And instead, she's holding him in place, waiting for Eve to do it. And he tells Eve, they will take you apart for this, both of you, and everyone you know, inch by inch. And she says, Eve, he will come after us. He will kill us. Hit him. And she does it with that look on her face that she does when she's doing her fake beg. And he then says, I have children. But Vilanelle says, imagine he's a log. Do it. Do it. And she does. And Vilanelle is elated. And then says again. And her eyes, like, this is like an angel from God came down and revealed himself to her. Like, she is just the transcendent expression on her face. This is everything she wanted. This is exactly what she wanted. And they have to get the fuck up out of here. But Vilanelle is much more willing to take this sort of in stride versus Eve, who is about to vomit. Like, just 1 second more and she would have thrown up all over everything. And Vilanelle comes to her and gets the first layer of her like uniform off because there's blood all over it, and helps her outside because Eve is clearly about to go into shock. Like, things are no bueno here. But Vilanelle is turning and smiling over her shoulder at Raymond's body and is so tickled at the fact that not only is Raymond fucking dead, but it's Eve who killed him. It's just like, it couldn't be more perfect. So she goes up to the camera and sees this dude outside, who I think is the Danny that asked Eve if he could take her to dinner, if I'm not mistaken. She seems to recognize that this guy is bad news and part of the crew that they don't want to be tangling with right now. And she's very focused on getting to the car. But Eve is in such shock that she's standing in the alleyway, just sort of staring around, not even really hearing when Vilanelle is talking to her. The whole sense of her is that she is like coming apart at the edges. And this is the real moment that I began to realize Vilanelle and Eve are not the same. Like, because there have been a lot of moments throughout this where I started to wonder, you know, the two of them have displayed mirror image behavior to one another. And it's been clear that Eve has some rage issues. Eve is a little bit too enamored of the violence and the gore and everything. But once I saw her reaction here and how much all of the life seemed to go out of her after she killed this guy, I was like, okay, it's not the same for the two of them. So they go into what's basically like the catacombs under the city, where there's a lot of scaffolding, and apparently they do a lot of like, this looks like where one of the scenes from John Wick 3 took place, or 2, actually, I think it was. But they're walking, and Vilanelle is pretty sure, it seems like, that she knows where she's going, and she's trying to just lead Eve along. And Eve is having trouble keeping up, is like beginning to sort of feel faint, says it's so hot. And Vilanelle tells her, it's okay if you feel weird, you just killed someone for the first time. And says, with an axe, and gives her this look of like, almost like, if I had time, I would tear your clothes off right the fuck now. We cut to Constantine sitting on those steps again, and I can't tell if he knows what happened or not. He may. I'm wondering if he didn't set it up for Raymond to die too. I don't know. But he meets with Carolyn and she gives him an envelope that I assume has the location of his family. And he walks away, and I really thought somebody might scoot out of one of those little side doors and fucking stab him or shoot him or something. She watches him go so intently that I was certain something else was coming, but it does not seem so. So finally, our girls find this spot where there is a wooden, it's a wall, but it's like so rickety that Eve is able to bust it down. And she busts it down by main force, essentially. She gets like another plank and that's about it. But she goes to town on this thing. And Vilanelle watches her break the whole thing apart. Oh my God. She's yelling at it. Come on, you piece of shit. And Vilanelle says, are you sure you're okay? And I'm like, yeah, see, Vilanelle, this is the thing. Did you have this sort of reaction the first time you killed someone? I'm going to guess no. I don't know. It doesn't seem like she has started to suspect, though, that they're not the same. They go up these stairs that are all mossy and sort of broken apart at the end of this hallway and come out into these ruins. Now, these ruins may ring a bell for some of you. You may know where this is. I don't. I have no idea. But they are beautiful. They really are. It's a bunch of pillars with the sort of like lintels going across, and a lot of them are broken, and there's like whole walls missing, and it's really something. This is the kind of place that like you could see having a really cool looking wedding or something, you know? I just loved this whole setting. I've never seen anything like it before. So Vilanelle says at this point, we're going to have to get out of here. We should get a cabin in Alaska. Have you ever seen pictures of Alaska? It's amazing. We could be normal, and I have money, so you don't need to worry about that. And Eve just says, okay. And that was when I was like, she's just saying okay. She's just going with this. This doesn't feel right. And Vilanelle says, I'll look after you. It's going to be amazing. And really looks so happy. She looks so excited, like a little girl. Like, genuinely, her smile is just this weird little girl smile. It's very, very creepy. So, she's walking around, and apparently, I am guessing, starting to worry that maybe they might run into people. She pulls the gun, and it's only in response to a bunch of birds flying by, but she has the gun out in an instant, and Eve sees it, and all of a sudden she puts it all together and says, oh, you wanted me to kill him. So it's another person who set her up today. And just pretty much this seems to sort of break her. Why didn't you shoot Raymond? You had it under control. No, oh my God, that you wanted me to do it. And she starts asking Eve, how did it feel? And Eve says, wet. Which, ew. Yeah, I guess so. So at this point, Vilanelle says, I'm proud of you. Which Eve seems truly shocked that she's saying that. And I'm like, why are you shocked? Haven't you met her? Of course she would behave this way with your first kill. She seems so like mystified by it. And I'm like, you know exactly who this woman is. So I thought. So Villanelle says, you made us safe. After today, people will be angry. But we can look after ourselves now, can't we? Which I guess, basically, what it seems to me, there's a combination of her wanting Eve to kill Raymond. I think it's one, sort of a trauma bond. Like when something happens to you that only one other person in the world can relate to, you sort of inadvertently bond with that person. And the only person who was there and who knows what happened to Raymond is Vilanelle. And also, I think she kind of wanted to like break the seal on Eve's killing and have it be for this reason too, so that she could ensure it would be easier for Eve next time, that she could rely on Eve to kill other threats too, if they needed to. And she tries to take her hands, and Eve says, I've got to go home. And she says, you can't. We need to talk. And Eve says no, and keeps walking away. And she says, you're ruining the moment. To which Eve says, what do you think is happening here? And you can really see at this point, Villanelle, her whole happy little girl veneer is gone. And she's starting to get really mad. This is hard to watch too. Villanelle says, I thought and she says, you thought what? We'd be Bonnie and Clyde and just go on a killing spree, cut a few throats? You want me to be a mess. You want me to be scared. But I'm like you now. I'm not afraid of anything. And she gets up in her face. This is what you wanted. And she tries to sort of put her hand to Eve's face. And Eve jerks away from her and begins to walk away. And she says, no, why are you being like this? I thought you were special. And Eve says, I'm sorry to disappoint you. And continues to walk away. That she says also, I love you, to which Eve is like, no, you don't. You don't even know what that is. And this is when she says, you're mine. And this sort of reveals to me a little bit more about what I was having trouble understanding R.E. Aaron Peel in the last episode. Aaron Peel wanted to own and possess Vilanelle. And that is what she wants with Eve as well, in her own way. And I didn't really get that until now. I don't know if she would have gotten bored with Eve. I assume yes. Because she says we'll be normal. I don't buy that for a second, and I don't think she wants that either. But this whole, like, the possession thing is a really weird little detail that I find fascinating. I don't know if any of you guys have watched the Netflix redo of Unsolved Mysteries, but there's an episode, spoilers by the way, for like one of the maybe episode 3. There's an episode where a woman is killed, and when you're watching it, it seems absolutely crystal clear who killed her. You're watching a man talk about her in such possessive terms and be very excited that he's the sole owner of the woman's ashes and says, I'm the only one who can touch her, so that's good. A couple of things like that, where it's clear how much it means to him to be the only one who has her for himself, dead or not. She's his, and that's what he wanted. And this feels like that to me, and it's just something I don't understand, wanting something so badly that you're willing to see it be destroyed in order to possess it. But yeah, she says, you're mine, and Eve says no. Then I'm sorry to disappoint, and she walks away, and Vilanelle lifts her gun and takes a shot. And for a minute, I was like, she didn't actually shoot her. But then the camera swings around and we see Eve crumpled on the ground and Vilanelle walking away. And I really was kind of shocked. If this had been the last season, can you imagine this is where it ends? And it seems like Vilanelle just killed Eve? Like, honestly, where else do you go with a relationship like this? Because Eve is not somebody who would be okay with doing a Bonnie and Clyde routine. You know? That's absolutely not something that she would be down for. And it seems like Vilanelle sort of takes offense to her saying that in the way that she does, because she says stop it in a very harsh tone when Eve begins to joke about it. But also, I think in her heart of hearts, that really is kind of what she was thinking, was that eventually she could get Eve used to killing enough that they could, like, make a family project out of it or something. I don't know. It's just a weird, like, I really don't know what she was picturing. When she says we could be normal, I mean, I don't imagine the two of them, like, moving somewhere and making friends and going to brunch and, like, you know, really being normal. What does Vilanelle even know about normal? How can she? I don't know. And now, where do we go in season 3? Now that she's been shot, who finds her? I'm assuming that Eve lives, but they are in a very remote spot. Who finds her? How do they find her? How does Eve survive? And I have to say that I like this turn of events, because somebody like Eve, I can absolutely understand being fascinated by somebody like Vilanelle, but also there is nowhere for this to go except for her getting angry or bored at you and deciding to kill you eventually. That's just gonna happen. It's inevitable that somebody like Vilanelle will reach a point, whether it's near or far, in which she has sort of had it. And this seems to be very similar to the path that Vilanelle had with her old tutor, whose name I'm forgetting now, that Eve went and met, and who Vilanelle castrated her husband and thought that she would be happy about it. Vilanelle is looking for someone to be a partner in this way, but she keeps going for women who don't actually see things the way that she sees them. In an effort to try and, like, win them over, it's like there's a project there for her of getting them over to her side that she's hoping will happen. And is that just tied up with her boredom? Is it a feeling of, like, trying to get something? I feel like we heard a while back about Vilanelle mentioning her sister and something that had happened with her sister, but I can't remember if that was anything or if that was Vilanelle just fucking with the therapist or what. And is there something that happened there? Because she says to Constantine in that one scene where he's talking about his family, she says, I wouldn't know, all my family are dead. And he sort of hints that they are not. And she doesn't seem to know what he's talking about. And I am deeply curious about that and what that means if Vilanelle has remaining family. Like, does it matter to her? Does she care about ties like that? It's hard for me to see it. And does that have any effect on things? I just don't really... I feel like there's an underlying possessiveness to her. And I want to know why she picks the women that she picks, because there has to be something behind it, I assume. But yeah, she's got a very particular type, obviously, with this hair and them being older. And I don't know, being maternal is the wrong word. Obviously very intelligent is a big factor for her. But yeah, the whole thing, what an ending. What an ending. I really think this is an amazing season finale. I like it. And I just can't imagine, like, the next season, because, you know, I was asking who finds Eve. If she's found by any of her own team, she has pretty much abdicated her position with MI6. Is she, like, somebody who can be got now? Would she be considered a target? Can she reconsider and rejoin in an effort to track down Vilanelle? Would she want to track down Vilanelle? And what about Nico and his girlfriend getting murdered? Are there any ripple effects from that at all? We don't even see a reference to it this episode. I have a lot of questions, so I'm really eager to start season 3. So yeah, that's about it, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Laura again for commissioning this episode. I can't believe we're done with season 2. There's only one more to go. I hope you all have been enjoying it. And I will be seeing you again soon with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.